Hi everybody, this is Bev, Clarko Vision. Excuse me while I just get my screen right. Um, it's been a while, and for the first time in a long time, I'm feeling up to doing a video. So here we are, and as you can probably see from the title, it's all about 1986 and specifically the music I have in my collection from 1986. So I went through it all and with the help of Discogs as well, and I think I've pulled everything I have from that year, and I thought we'd just take a quick run through it. Quick now, there's quite a few records here, and just briefly touch on a few of them and talk about 1986. Now, I kind of got the idea to do this about 3 months ago, I think. Metal Mickey put out a video on one of his magazine look-throughs. It was a Kerrang from 1986, and in that particular issue there was a band mentioned in it, or an album mentioned in it, and maybe it was the album section of quite an obscure band, I guess you could say, because I don't think many people really took much notice of them back in the day, and I have that record in the collection. I just thought, okay, I wonder what else I've got for 1986, and so here it is. So I thought we would just take a browse. Everything I've got's on vinyl apart from two, which are CD. It's interesting that I don't actually have one of the albums on. In fact, I do have that one on vinyl because I've got it on CD and vinyl. I must have just grabbed the CD because it was easier. So, but I'll just show the CD rather than dig out the vinyl since I'm already here. But most of them, I think, are original presses from that year. There is a few reissues because obviously some original pressings of one or two of them are hard to get or expensive, and but have been reissued by other record companies or record labels, which is good, and enables people to get a hold of copies. So without further ado, we'll get looking into this. So as I say, I hope you're all well. And so I've pulled them in sort of an alphabetical order, I think, so I'll just go through them as an A to Z. So back in 1986, I would be 9 going on 10, and I hadn't really gotten into rock and metal at that point. I was still discovering music in a big way. I was still quite young, and just kind of getting into music. And I think out of all these records I've got here, or all the bands that I'm going to show here, at the time in the year 1986, I was probably aware of about 3 of them or 4 of them at the max. So what I have is, and since then, since I've grown up over the course of my life, I have acquired, I don't know how many there is here. Looking at it, there's maybe about 25 or something. I don't know, it's just a number. Over those years, I have got these albums because I've discovered the band at some point since, between 1986 and now. And they've joined my collection because I like them. So alphabetically speaking, here's the first one from 1986, and it just so happens to be my favourite album by Accept. I don't think this is everybody's favourite album, Russian Roulette, but it's mine. It was kind of the first, there's a couple of songs on this record that first brought me to their proper attention, where I kind of took notice of them. And that would only be that would be about around 8 to 10 years ago, because I had heard of Accept back in the 80s but didn't take much notice of them, and for some reason I skipped over the pages in the magazines because I seemed to think they were a thrash band, and at the time that was just not my kind of thing. So they were basically too heavy for my interests at all. And you know, my heaviness doesn't really go beyond some thrash, which is not a lot at that. But anyway, that's beside the point. So I didn't really take notice of Accept till way beyond the 80s had been and gone, and you know, as I say, about 10 years ago. And obviously it was the title track, Russian Roulette, and TV War. Just thought they were really good, and in fact, not really good, excellent. I really like the title track on this, and that's what made me investigate Accept. And of course, I particularly like a lot of their 80s stuff, and then went on to the UDO with Udo's own band. So, oh no, I have pulled out the, oh no, never mind. That one that I thought I had on the CD out for, I don't, I've pulled out the vinyl. Is this one. This is one of the bands from 1986 that I did know about in 1986, funnily enough, because they were pretty well known at the time. This album was rather huge. And this is my original pressing that I got from, I probably got this in about 1988, actually. Well, my dad would get it for me for Christmas or something like that. So Slippery When Wet was one of my early, you know, albums from the rock and metal period. This was one of the first ones when I started getting into bands that were more on the rock and the metal and the guitar oriented sound, big arena rock sound. This was one of the bands that were out there, and with New Jersey and this was definitely one of the first bands that I got into in this kind of genre of music. So Slippery. Next up we have Chariot, Burning Ambition. Now this band, they kind of formed in the early 80s, and I think they're a British band. These guys are for the UK because I think they came under the new Wobham label. They kind of get put under that label, even though I think they came out around the end of that period when it was kind of dying out, 83 or something, I'm not sure. But this, I think, is this their second release or is it their debut? I can't really remember. But I think they formed a couple of years earlier, and then this came out in 86. And they sound like a new wave of British heavy metal band. They wouldn't be out of place in that umbrella, if you like, under that umbrella. And I really enjoy this album. I managed to pick up a copy. It is an original press because I don't think this has ever been reissued on vinyl anyway. And it's in lovely condition on Shade 4 Records. Next up is a band that many will be familiar with, and it's Cinderella. Although the album that got me into these guys was the following one, Long Cold Winter. That's when I kind of discovered them. So again, I didn't know this band in 86. This had kind of, as I say, I wasn't really just discovering metal bands until like the next year. It kind of rock and metal started happening for me. So this was just before that. I'm fortunate to have been gifted a Japanese pressing, so it is an original. And this is probably my second favourite from them. A lot of people like this one as their favourite, but my favourite's Long Cold Winter, just because it is. It's just how it is for me. But yeah, what's his name? Tom Kiefer. He is such a talented guitar player, really one of the ones I admire a lot. His style and his the emotion that he puts into his playing, I think, comes through a lot. Similar to Steve Clark in a way, I think, in some respects, but yeah. Anyway, moving on. Alphabetically keeping. This is the one you would have thought I might have had on vinyl, but actually no. I've only ever had this one on CD, and yet Out of This World I've got about 4 vinyl copies now. So yeah, the Final Countdown, this was another one, like Bon Jovi, this was one of the bands I knew at that time. How could you not notice them when I think, you know, the title track went to #1 probably everywhere. And yeah, it was massive, obviously, for this band. And this, again, it is one of the bands that kind of got me into this style of music, like Bon Jovi did, and Def Leppard, obviously. So the Final Countdown, not much to say about this, because I think most people kind of know what it is. This is not my favourite Europe album, though, because Out of This World is. So yeah, next in the vinyl is Fifth Angel, another band I did not discover until, I can't remember if I'd heard of them before. I'm sure I'd heard the name perhaps at some point, but wasn't really aware of what or who they were. And then High Roller Records, no, it wasn't High Roller Records. High Roller Records was where I got this from, but it was reissued on Metal Blade some years ago, in 2018, this reissue of their debut album, Fifth Angel, who are from the States. This is just a terrific melodic, hard rock, melodic metal record. So yeah, it would probably be around about 2018, which I think was the time when I was getting back into collecting records, and I got my hi-fi parts and the CD player and the record player. I bought all that stuff and started collecting stuff again, and got into the vinyl community. So and yeah, I think it was when I was browsing High Roller's website one day, and this caught my eye, and really so glad I ordered this. This is just a tremendous record. The debut and the follow-up that they released is equally superb. They did release a third album recently, so there's like a 35-year gap between the second and third, and it's still pretty good, but for me it's just not quite the same as the first two, but still pretty good. But this, I love this, and yes, good discovery. Another band that I discovered kind of around about the same time, I think, when I was getting back into collecting records again, was this band, group, project, Hawk. I discovered these guys probably by browsing YouTube, and had a listen to this album which was on there, and I really quite enjoyed it. It's quite kind of a guitar virtuoso kind of type album, and I'm normally not too keen on them, but this one, from what I recall, because I haven't actually played this in a while, so it'll probably get put on fairly soon. I recall liking this one and thinking it was a bit more tastefully written, if you like, than some guitar whittling nonsense that you get from some virtuoso guys. Or, for example, that Shout album, the album by Shout, the second one, not the first one, the second one. Too much guitar nonsense on that, which kind of ruins it for me. But anyway, this band, I think, now, I had brought up, let me just check, I brought up a page just so I got it right. I think that Scott Travis was in this band, and he went on to Racer X, and I think he ended up in Judas Priest at one point. Is he still? I don't know. Matt Sorum went on to Guns N' Roses, obviously, and Doug Marks, I think this is his project, to be honest with you, a guy called Doug Marks, and he went on to create a series of tuition videos, metal method or guitar method or something, to teach people to play guitars. So yeah, Doug Marks, Matt Sorum, David Fifolt, and Dave Tolley, or Steve Iola, keyboards. So yeah, it's really a band, I don't particularly know a lot about it, but this was a difficult one to get a hold of in this part of the world, and I did get it as a VCLT, courtesy of, I think, Metal Mickey, and also Rob at Black Star Vinyl had a hand in this, getting it to me, so excellent stuff. Just another one, this was a fairly new discovery by me, again, in fact, as recent as probably 3 years ago, this band, Heir Apparent. I wasn't really familiar with them at all until recently, and I'm thinking somebody else must have mentioned them on one of their YouTube channels, which must have inspired me to go and check them out. So this is a reissue again, this is not an original. I think the original is a bit tricky to get a hold of. Graceful Inheritance, this is the debut from this band, and if I'm right, Heir Apparent are also from the States. I thought they're kind of US power metal with a hint of progressive elements. And you can sort of tell that by listening to this album. There is that proggy kind of vibe about it in places. But it's definitely that US power metal. And it's a really good album. So yeah, this is reissued by Hammerheart Records out of the Netherlands. But yeah, another great classic 80s kind of rock metal. So this is another band that I did know about in 1986. I was aware these guys existed, but at the time in 86 I wasn't into Iron Maiden because they kind of seemed a bit too heavy for me. They were just too, too much for me at my young, brand newly discovering age of rock and metal stuff. However, 2 years later, when they released Seventh Son and Can I Play With Madness, at the time I still didn't take to them right away, although I did like Can I Play With Madness. What I also liked was that that got them into the top 10 in the UK. That was amazing for this country, for any kind of metal band. So it just sparked my interest a little bit more, but again, I didn't fully engage with Iron Maiden until much later, 2006 was it, when A Matter of Life and Death was released, and that album kind of helped me get back into music after a complete, I guess I just lost interest. From the 90s through to that period for a good kind of 15-20 years. So yeah, and obviously since then I fell in love with Maiden. They are now my favourite band, and this is my second favourite of the Maiden albums, behind Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. And this is one of my prized possessions, the Japanese issue. It's the special issue with the extra goodies inside it as well. So yeah, what can you say except up the irons? And another band, this would probably be band number 4 that I was aware of in 86, so that would be Europe, Bon Jovi, Maiden and Judas Priest. I had heard of this band as well, but again at the time was completely oblivious to this album in 1986. I was more familiar with the stuff of British Steel, I think. Breaking the Law seemed to be probably the first thing I heard from Judas Priest, to be honest. And I don't know, they just weren't a band that I kind of took interest of at the time. Maybe because I thought they were kind of older, from the 70s or something, I don't know why, but I didn't come back to Judas Priest until much later again, probably similar vein to Iron Maiden, when I got back into being interested in music again, as well as jumping on the Maiden bandwagon fully. I would be checking out all these other bands I used to like, and this would be one of them. And I like this album. In fact, I absolutely love Turbo Lover. It's one of my favourite Judas Priest songs, and it is just so 80s. It's just, that's why I love it. It's so 80s. You just had to be there. You know, it's just to kind of understand what people say when they talk about the 80s and something being so 80s. You kind of had to be there, I think. You just had, you know. Anyway, moving on. So next up, Keel, another band I had no idea existed back in the day, and discovered these guys probably about something like 5 or 6 years ago again, when I started getting into collecting records again. Keel, they are from the United States, I believe, as far as I know. They're kind of a melodic hard rock kind of band. I don't know, Bon Jovi-esque, Dokken, these kind of, I don't know, that sort of idea maybe. This is produced by Gene Simmons, this album. This is one of two I have from this band. So yeah, I think they're quite good. This is my favourite album out of what I've heard of their catalogue, and I only think I've heard 2 or 3 albums, but I prefer this one to, I think the other one I've got is self-titled, Keel. But yeah, I know Ron Keel is still involved in stuff today. But yeah, they're pretty decent. What else have we got from 1986? This came out that year. Kickaxe. Yet another band. Had no clue existed back in 1986 or the 80s. I hadn't heard about them. They're out of Canada. They're out of Darcy, 6 Strings 9 Lives area. And this is the only album of theirs I own. A lot of people seem to be very very much are fans of, I think, the previous album. Was it called Vices or something? I've not really heard that album in full. In fact, this is the only album of theirs I've heard in full. I've still kind of got to, I've not taken time out to sit and listen to more of their catalogue, to be honest with you. But the first track on this album is called Welcome to the Club. It's a title track, and it's such a good sounding song. To me, it sticks out from the rest of the album. It sounds that little bit different to the rest of the record, as if it almost shouldn't belong on this record, but there it is. And the rest of it, again, it's kind of melodic hard rock, kind of Bon Jovi, Dokken kind of Cinderella kind of stuff. But yeah, it's I do enjoy listening to it. I wasn't sure at first. It took a couple of listens, but yeah, I do enjoy it. And the title track is my favourite. That is on as well. It's a Pasha record label. Yes, it's one of the more unusual named record labels. Next up is another band I kind of discovered in about 2019. No clue they existed until then. Petra. And I think it was Tim Line who used to do videos in the VC as well. He kind of sparked my interest in this band because he talked about them quite a bit. This is their 1986 release, Back to the Streets. They have a large catalogue. They, I think, were formed in the 70s, released albums throughout 70s, 80s. I think they're either still going or they've been going until recently. I'm not really sure, but I'm kind of only interested in their 80s albums. I do have about 3 others for this band. I think I've got one of their 80s ones to pick up, or did I just pick it up recently? I can't remember. But yeah, they're a Christian rock metal band as well, very melodic sounding. You know, as in the Striper vein of the time perhaps, but a little bit different style. They've got style kind of more of their own, I don't know what you'd call it, but it's just good melodic hard rock. So Back to the Street. Another one that came out of the new wave of British heavy metal umbrella is Q5. Did they come out of that umbrella? I think their debut did. Or am I talking rubbish here? Anyway, I think they were kind of, they kind of sound a bit like that. Maybe that's what I'm thinking. Q5's debut came out in 83, I think. Again, that would be towards the end of the new album period. But the album kind of sounded like something that would fit into that period. This is their second album, obviously from 1986, and it's When the Mirror Cracks. It's on Music for Nations, and this is good. I quite enjoy this record. I don't think it's as good as their debut, their original album, but again, it's pretty decent metal, rock, melodic metal kind of stuff. So, this one is kind of more of an obscure record band, whatever you want to call it. They are out of Germany, the band, I believe. And this is a French pressing. I think this was only released, according to Discogs, there's only a German pressing and a French pressing, so it was only released in those 2 countries back in 86. This is an original, and this is the French one on Accord Records. Somewhat probably unknown to most people. If you know who these guys are, or if you have this record, let me know in the comments. But they're just good, really decent old school, you know, classic 80s metal kind of stuff, you know. Just something kind of like Chariot, maybe, in a way, similar idea to them. Renegade, self-titled, really nice condition album as well. There's the boys there. But yeah, I was glad to find a copy of that. Next one from 86 is Sinner. A lot of people might be more familiar with this band. They are out of Germany, obviously, and who's the most well-known guy? Matt Sinner, obviously. He now does a lot of production work and that kind of stuff, I think. Are Sinners still on the go? I'm not sure. I think they might be. If not, then they must have ceased activities fairly recently, because I'm sure they were still releasing a lot of stuff. But yeah, they've got quite a lot of records in their catalogue. This is one of their earlier ones from the 80s, obviously. They formed in the early 80s, coming out fighting. Trying to read that backwards. Original, and it's on the Noise International. I think this is the label on the actual record is one of the earlier kind of Noise designs that you tend to not really see too often, to be honest with you. So that's what it looks like there. Hopefully that's coming out okay for you to see. But yeah, so there we have it. And this is a nice condition copy as well, and I quite like this album. I've not listened to a lot of Sinner, I must admit. They're a band I need to give a bit more time to, but I did. I was obviously browsing YouTube one day and listened to this, and really quite enjoyed the record. So I hunted down a copy, as you do. Next up from '86 is this band called Skagerrak. I have 2 copies of this album, exactly the same record. The one here with the flat earth, this is the European release, or the Scandinavian release, and this is the United States release. You've got the flat earth on the back here on this one. So Skagerrak are a Danish band, and again, I don't know how well known internationally they are in places like the States, but they released 2 records in the 80s. This is the debut self-titled Skagerrak, and the next one was in 88, and then they had a third which came out in 1990, and I think after that they split and reformed later, and there's a few other releases further down the line, but I'm only interested in the 3 from back in the day. So these are both original presses. European one's on Polydor, the US one's on MCA, and again, I had no clue this band existed back in the day. I hadn't heard of them in the UK. Same with Sinner. I didn't know about Sinner back in the 80s either. And so it was much more recently, probably something like 3-4 years ago maybe, I discovered these guys, and I really like them. They're one of the European hard rock metal bands, likes of your American equivalents. Again, would be something like I don't know, Poison, Cinderella, the likes of Dokken, Rat, Bon Jovi maybe, these kind of bands. So this was like your European version of similar style of music, you know. But I actually, you know, if I was to compare these guys to Rat, personally, my opinion only, these are way classier and way better than Rat by a million miles, to be honest with you. They're just better all round, musically, lyrically, blah 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 blah. But that's just my opinion. So how many of you in America know about these guys? Did you hear about them? Did anybody hear about them over there? I don't know how big the European bands, some of them, got internationally, but I think these guys generally did alright in their own territory in mainland Europe. But again, as I say, I can't be sure because back in the day, didn't know they existed. So, but yeah, I really enjoy listening to them. Well, we've not got too many more. This band, Sortilege, again, never knew they existed back in 1986 or any of the 80s. Discovered them fairly recently. I think somebody else again mentioned these guys in one of their videos, and I went to investigate. Really enjoy them. They're kind of they have a cult following in France. They are from France. Just French heavy metal, classic, early 80s kind of sound to them. I think this is their second album. The 1986 classic. Yeah, they did have something out before this. This is not their debut. This one, when it was released, there's a French version and an English version. This is the French version, and I think that translates in the English version to A Hero's Tears. And of course this is all in French, as you can see there, and obviously the English version, the songs, they sing it in English as well. I think to try and reach out to a wider audience. But yeah, they have stood the test of time. Sortilege are still on the go. They released an album last year, which I was kindly VCLT'd. And it is pretty good, but I do have a preference for the 80s stuff. And this was reissued on Dying Victims Productions. They have reissued this just fairly recently, and I'm so glad, because to get an original pressing of this is difficult and expensive. So yeah, I was really chuffed to get a hold of this. Again, it's a classic heavy metal. If that's your thing, check them out. They do sing in French, but that shouldn't bother you. Great music. Yeah, I have Status Quo in my collection. This is the only album I think. I've got a cassette of one of their others. But Status Quo are quite well known to me. My dad was a fan of these guys, so he has a lot of their stuff in his collection, and when we were young we were kind of brought up. So yes, I would know that this band existed back in '86 as well. So that must be about 5 bands that I knew of in 1986. But I didn't get this album until probably about 3 or 4 years ago. I think I found it in a charity shop, and it's in lovely condition. Either that or I got it cheap on eBay, I can't remember. But I really wanted this album specifically for the title track, In the Army Now, because really like that song. It's a little bit different for Status Quo, but just something about it I like. I don't listen to this very often, but I kind of just wanted it on record. So yeah, Status Quo, In the Army Now from 1986. Stormwitch, out of Germany, I think, if I'm correct. Another band I discovered recently. No idea that this band would exist in the 80s, not a clue. As I say, recent discovery, probably 3 years ago or something. They are, I think, still on the go. I have a much more recent album of theirs on CD. This is the first of the 80s releases from them that I have. I think this is their debut, is it? I can't remember for sure. But if it's not their debut, it's like their second or third. So this is Stronger Than Heaven is the title of this album, and Scratch Records is what they're on. It is a German pressing, and I think this was also a VCLT from Metal Down Under. And yeah, they're just, again, it's just kind of classic 80s metal. So this one here is the one that was mentioned in that issue of Kerrang that Metal Mickey was looking through 3 months ago. And there was, I think, a small bit about it. Surface, Race the Night. And obviously when he pointed that out in the magazine, I thought, oh, that's the thing I've got. And yes, it is. It's on Killer Watt. They are a British band. And this is they're a one and done. This is the only thing they released officially. And it's got stamped up here, recorded live. So I think they must have just did a live take in the studio of this. Or, wait a minute, no, it could be live in front of an audience. I think it is. It's been a while since I've listened to it. I've had this in my collection for a couple of years. And it was a blind buy at the time. I think I saw it on eBay for about £3 or something. And I just bought it because I think it kind of interested me, the cover and that. I thought that's got to be some kind of heavy metal thing. And yeah, so it was released in 1986, and I'm sure now that I think of it, it was recorded in front of an audience, but I could be wrong. But it's actually pretty decent. It's quite a good listen. Just 80s kind of metal. So again, another obscure one that probably hardly anybody's ever heard of before. They obviously didn't do a lot if this is the only thing they ever released. So, but yeah, nice one to have in the collection. I don't mind getting unusual things, you know, if I like it, then it's in my collection. Another European band that have no idea how well they did in the States, for example, or abroad internationally. These guys are out of Sweden, Treat, and I think they had pretty good success. Let me just double check here. Yeah. I think they did have good success in their homeland and some international success, and they were regarded as the best hard rock band in Sweden at one time, it says on something here. And that would probably be a big thing, given that Europe and the Final Countdown were on the go at this time, so it tells you something about them. But this band, they've got a great singer, great music, just melodic hard rock, melodic metal. I can't really believe they weren't better known, to be honest, than what they were, I guess, at the time, because again, I didn't discover these guys until I think it would be around, well, wait a minute, hang on. This is one of the bands that I'd heard of before, like Fifth Angel and Like Accept. I was aware of the name and their existence somewhere in the back of my mind, but I don't think I really listened to them until much more recently, which would be 2018 or something for this band. And it happened by chance. I found one of their later records in a charity shop, picked it up. I thought that looks heavy metal or something, so yeah, really enjoyed it. And since finding that album in the charity shop, I have hunted down all their 80s releases, and this one, The Pleasure Principle. And I really enjoy all of my 80s catalogue, and these guys are still on the go as well, although probably like a lot of the bands, not with the original members. But I think they released an album, was it last year or the year before perhaps? Fairly recently, very recently. And I love that as well, that's really good. So this is a band that for me would come first before the likes of Rat and Warrant and, you know, a load of these bands, the big bands from America. This band's, to me, is as good as, if not even better than half of these bands. And that's why I'm curious to know how well they were known over there, as I do feel they should have been bigger than probably what they were at the time. But that's just my opinion. You know, everybody's opinion is just an opinion at the end of the day. You never really know. But I do advise you, if you're into the kind of melodic hard rock stuff and it's a band you've never checked out before, do check them out. Definitely worth it. And oh yeah, we're on the T's. So my other CD, Tesla, Mechanical Resonance, their debut, 1986. I discovered these guys back in the day, but not in 86. I think it was more like 1991, to be honest. Because I know they did Song and Emotion, which was dedicated to Steve Clark when he died in 91. because these guys were very good pals with Def Leppard. And, excuse me. So the first album I really heard for these guys was Psychotic Supper. And then I obviously did some investigating, and I know in the game Grand Theft Auto Vice City, the 80s one, Coming At You Live, is it on there? Is it on there? I'm sure it is. Oh, it's on one of the Grand Theft Auto. It has to be. I'm sure it's on one of them. Yeah, I'm sure it is. And when I heard that on there, I realised it was Tesla. It kind of prompted me to go back and look more into them. And here's this one here. So Tesla, you know, the early albums, the first three are the ones I have. So what have we got? We've got two left, and then we're done. This one is slightly more obscure, I guess, as well. Yet again, no clues to their existence until a couple of years ago. It's the usual thing, browsing YouTube, discovered them, Vengeance, did a bit of digging on their history. It turns out they're from the Netherlands, this band. No idea they've existed. They do have a few releases out, and this one obviously came out in '86. Is this their... can't remember if this is their debut or not. Let me just check. Vengeance. They formed in '83, so I think this is possibly their, I don't know, second. I've just got their discography up here. This is their second album. We Have Ways to Make You Rock. And again, it's a really good listen. It's a fun, enjoyable kind of melodic hard rock, melodic metal. And again, as I say, they're out of the Netherlands. One of the guys in this band, Aaron Lucassen, he went on to form... Oh, I've forgotten it. It's just went and I've just shut down the blimmin' thing. Bear with me. It's one of these metal orchestra things. Vengeance. NCE. I'll tell you in 2 seconds. Oh, what are they called? Iron, is it? Or something like that. I think it's coming to me. Yes. So, the Head of Iron, yes, the sort of progressive orchestral metal project. Aaron Lucassen is in that now. He's in. That's what he's doing today. But back in the day, he was in this band Vengeance, and they had a few releases. Again, this is straight out the 80s, 1986. No idea they existed then, but it's another good listen, just melodic hard rock 80s. My last one is Warlock, with Doro Pesch at the helm, and this is the second release from Warlock, and I like it. And I was aware of Warlock in the 80s. Particularly since they were on the Monsters of Rock festival in the year 1986, which was the year Def Leppard attended as well, so I kind of knew of them quite, probably since about 86, 87 to be honest, but I never bothered listening to much of their stuff. I'd heard bits and pieces, but again, never paid too much attention at the time, not really sure why, but in more recent times I've gone back to check them out, and I have all the Warlock albums apart from the debut. I've still picked that one up. So this is an original, these are all original presses. The ones that are not original I've mentioned are reissues. So, but yeah, so Warlock. Good stuff out of Germany. So that's what I've got for 1986. I don't know how many there is there, and this video is quite long, but hope you enjoyed the ramble in there, and let me know in the comments if you've got any of those, if you've never heard of any of those, what you were listening to in 86, or if you just want to say hello. Anyway, I better head off now, and I'll see you again when I see you. Hopefully it won't be as long. Take care. Bye the now.